Well, how are you this morning? A little warmer than last Sunday, I hope. That got wild last weekend, and man, I missed you guys. We hated canceling last Sunday, and hopefully you were able to do the online service and still be connected that way. But man, safety is always going to come first, and we just kept hearing worse and worse and worse. Like it was just going to be crazy, and it ended up being really crazy. So here's what's going on today. Last Sunday was going to be the final Sunday of our series that we were in January, and then last Sunday night was supposed to be Vision Night, which is maybe a little ironic because we didn't see this coming, but the snowstorm made us just kind of change all our plans. And so because of that, today's Vision Sunday, we're just rolling with it, okay? Today is Vision Sunday, and today we're going to talk about the future of our church. We're also starting a new series today called Greater. And what we're going to do for the next 6 weeks is unpack this vision a little bit at a time. And as we do, we're going to look at the story of a guy in the Old Testament who has, I think, one of the most remarkable stories in the entire Bible. It's just this crazy story of courage and sacrifice and faith and obedience. And it's an inspiring story that I think is going to inspire us. So let me throw one disclaimer out there before we jump right in. And by the way, if you have a Bible and you want to track with me, we're going to be in the book of Nehemiah, just chapter 1, verse 1. So find that toward the beginning of your Bible. We'll put the verses on the screen too so you can follow along with us there. We're going to jump into that in a second. So here's my disclaimer, okay? If this is your first Sunday here, you picked a really good Sunday to be here. You might have picked a weird one, but in a good way, okay? Because by the end of the time, end of our service this morning, you're going to know, man, exactly who we are. You're going to know exactly where we're headed, and you are going to know exactly how we're going to try to get there. And so what I want to ask you to do, if you're here for maybe the first time or maybe only been here a couple times, is just lean in and ask yourself, is this the kind of church or these the kind of people that I want to be a part of? Okay, so I'll just ask you to do that. Let me give you some context on the story we're going to look at today, okay? About 600 years before Jesus was born, the Babylonians came in and conquered Jerusalem. They leveled the city, and they took all the people captive, and they shipped them all out to Babylon to be slaves. And it was about 70 years later, so 7 decades of exile. They're away from home. They want to go home, but they're captives, right? 70 years later, the king says, okay, some of you guys can go home. And so some of the Israelites go back to Jerusalem, but when they get there, they find that nothing has been done in 70 years. The city's in ruins. The wall around the city's in ruins. It's all a mess. They get home, and they're totally heartbroken by what they see. And word of this is about to travel all the way back to Babylon. It's going to travel, in fact, to the throne room, and it's going to travel to a guy named Nehemiah, who's a cupbearer to the king. Okay, he's an influential person. He's got a pretty good job. He serves the king of the entire kingdom every day. He's pretty comfortable. And as far as he goes, like, he's set. He could just put his life on cruise control and be pretty happy, okay? But what he's about to hear is going to just destroy his comfort. It's going to ruin it, and it's going to refocus and reshape his entire life, all right? So here's what happens. We're just going to start again. Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 1. And by the way, this is probably Nehemiah either writing this or dictating it to somebody, but this is first person. So you're hearing Nehemiah's words. Okay, here's what he says, starting in verse 1. In the late autumn, in the month of Kislev, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes' reign, and that's the king of Babylon, he says, I was at the fortress of Susa, one of the palaces in the kingdom. And he says, Hanani, one of my brothers, came to visit me with some other men who just arrived from Judah. And I asked them about the Jews who had returned there from captivity and about how things were going in Jerusalem. And they said to me, things are not going well for those who returned to the province of Judah. They're in great trouble and disgrace. See, the wall of Jerusalem has been torn down and the gates have been destroyed by fire. Now, Nehemiah is pretty sad to hear this because specifically, here's what this means for the kingdom. The whole city's in ruins, but some people are starting to work on that. The thing is, though, if you rebuild the city and you don't have a wall to protect the city, the next army that comes along is just going to conquer you again. And Nehemiah knows this. And so even though maybe some things are starting to happen with like the town, and there will be homes again and buildings again and hopefully eventually a temple again, Nehemiah knows if we don't rebuild the wall, we're just sitting ducks. Something has to be done. And I want you to catch this, okay? This is how bothered he is by the state of things. This is his reaction in verse 4. He says, "When I heard this, I sat down and I wept." That's how bothered he was when he looked around and he saw the state of things. He saw the condition of the people in the kingdom. He was so bothered, he says, "I sat down and I wept." And then he goes on, he talks about how he fasted. And then he began to pray. And then he began to confess. And as he's having this conversation with God, it's just basically, if I could sum it up for you, it's like, God, something has to be done. And it's not just for the city, and it's not just for the people, but it's for you. It's for your reputation. It's for your name's sake. Somebody has to do something. And Nehemiah has this realization, right? It's like somebody has to do something, and I think that somebody might be me. And now he has a decision to make, because remember, he's pretty comfortable. He's got a pretty good gig. And he could say, I see the need, but I'm not going to do anything about it. He could say, no, I'm aware of what's going on over there, but I'm over here and I'm comfortable. He could put it on cruise control. He could say, not my problem, and just set it all aside and do his thing, right? He could do that. But what he had was not just an awareness of a problem. What he had, because of the awareness of what he saw, was a burden. He had this burden from God, and he couldn't shake this burden. And so he had to make a decision. Instead, what he chose to do was allow his burden to become his calling. And he had no guarantee of success. He had no safety net. He's really putting his life on the line here, literally in every sense of the word, putting his life on the line. But he chose to be obedient. He chose to step out in faith. And because he did, God used him to do something that literally changed the course of eternity. And we could maybe even speculate that some of us sitting here today are here because Nehemiah made this choice, okay? Now, we're just dipping our toes in Nehemiah's story today, and we're really going to get into it next weekend. But what I just want to pull from these first few verses is this. And this kind of sets up the entire series, sets up the rest of the day. Every great move of God begins with a burden from God. Every single time that you see God move, it begins with him putting a burden on somebody, helping them see a need or an opportunity. And they not only see it, but the weight of that burden is so heavy that they're moved to do something about it, right? Now, here's what that means for our church. Here at FCC, if you haven't heard me say this before, and if you've been around a while, you've heard this, but if you haven't, we think about church a little differently than maybe the way that you've thought about church, maybe the way that you were raised, maybe the way some other people think about church. See, we say that church is not a building that you go to. It's not an event or a service that you attend. It's not a program. Sometimes people say, I'm going to church on Sunday. We don't believe that church is a place that you go. We believe that church is a people that you choose to be a part of. Church is you, and it's me. It's people who believe in Jesus, and we put our faith in him, and we've said, yes, Jesus, we're going to follow you. That's the church. And so it's not a place, it's not a location, a pin on a map. Church is a movement of people. It's people who are saying, yes, God, wherever you want us to go, we'll go. And you choose to be a part of that movement. That's church in a nutshell. And we've often said that for us, our church, not the building, but us as people, we're not here just in Canton. In fact, one of the first things I said from this stage when I came here 13 years ago was that I believe we're not just a church that's here in this city, but I believe that God put us here to be a church that is for this city. I believe that God put us here more than 170 years ago to make a difference that's going to ripple into eternity, just like Nehemiah made a decision that made a difference that has rippled into eternity, and starting with our present. And we have a burden for this city. We have a burden for the people of this city, and we have a burden for this region and beyond this region. And so I want you to consider at the start of this series, what if we don't act? Like, put yourself in Nehemiah's shoes, and he's got this choice to make, and he could choose act or don't act. What if we don't act? What if we say, no, things are pretty good. They've been going pretty well. Last year was a really good year. We're just going to put it on cruise control. We're going to maintain the status quo. We're just going to do what we do. God's clearly moving. He's clearly in it, and all that other stuff, not our problem. And we just set it all to the side. What if we choose to do that, okay? Now, let me tell you what I've been asking myself. What I've been asking myself is, what if we choose to do the opposite? What if we choose to be a church that sells out to wherever God wants to take us, whatever it's going to look like and whatever it requires? What if we choose to be a church that says, God, however uncomfortable it may make us, we're going if you're in it? God, if you're going to lead us there, we're going to follow you. See, I've been praying this prayer, and maybe you've heard this prayer before, but the prayer is pretty simple. It's just, break my heart for what breaks yours, God. If there's something that breaks your heart, I want it to break mine. If there's something that moves you, I want it to move me. And if there's something that causes you to act, I want it to cause me to act. I've been praying that, and I've been praying that for you. And over the past few months, I've been kind of leaking this verse out that I told you the first time it's going to be a big verse for our church, and today you're going to find out why. Okay? And the verse is John 3:30. These are some words that John the Baptist spoke about Jesus, and they're really simple words, but I think they may be some of the most profound words in the entire Bible. John simply said, he, Jesus, must become greater and greater, and I must become less and less. And that's been my prayer for you and for me and our church. Just, Jesus, we want you to be greater and greater in us, in our church, in our city, in this region, all around the world. We want you to be greater and greater. We want to be less and less. Don't make it about us. Make it all about you. It's not about a building. It's not about numbers. As I say all the time around here, we are not about building our castle. We're about building his kingdom. That's our vision, okay? And so, man, it's about Jesus being greater in homes and neighborhoods and schools and workplaces and across the whole 330 area code. And again, to the ends of the earth. I want to ask you to consider this morning, what if God is calling us and inviting us into a Nehemiah moment? What if he's inviting us into something that is immeasurably more than all we've asked or imagined or envisioned for our church or for any one of our lives? What if he is inviting us into a vision that's going to make him greater? I'll tell you, we got to go for it, because when he becomes greater, people get set free. And free people get healed. And healed people spread hope. And hope pushes back darkness. And I don't know about you, but when I look around, I see a lot of darkness. And I see a lot of desperation, and I see a lot of searching. And that's a burden that God has given me, and I think he's given to a lot of you, and I know he's given that burden to our church. And so that's our motivation. I told you this is a different kind of Sunday, and here's why. You see, over the past 20 years, our church has been through a lot of ups and downs and highs and lows. We've had a lot of victories, and we've had a lot of struggles. But you know what? The past 3 or 4 years, what we've seen God do has been nothing short of miraculous. And when I look back at the last 12 months, what I've seen happen could only have happened because God is in what's happening. And it would be pretty easy for us to say, let's just keep that going, right? It'd be pretty easy for us to just kick it into cruise control. But I've been praying that prayer. I've been praying, God, what do you want us to do? I've been asking where he wants to take us. I've been asking him how he wants to use us to make him greater and make us less. And I believe he's given us a picture of this. A whole bunch of us, we've been praying, we've been talking, we've been in meetings all year long last year. Different conversations talking about what could this look like and dreaming about things. And then we say, no, that's not it. And we're just asking God, make this your vision, make this your dream, not mine, not ours, only yours. And just give us the courage and the faith to say yes to that whenever you show us what it is. And I think he's given us a picture of that. And that's what we're going to talk about today. You see, we're at a place where we got to stop thinking about today or this week or this month or this year, and we got to start looking down the road and asking, what's the next season for our church going to look like? What's the future look like? The next few years, what's going to happen? And to help you get a sense of what some of that picture is going to look like, our team's put together a video that's going to tell the story. And I just want to tell you, as you watch this video, don't jump to what you think you want to do, what you feel maybe even called to do as you're watching. I want to ask you to just pray a couple simple prayers. Maybe it's, God, would you break my heart for what breaks yours? Or God, what do you want to do in and through me? Or maybe it's just simply this. God, what do you want me to see through your eyes? And then give me the courage to act. I want you to think about this while you watch.
More than 150 years ago, a small group of people had a dream for a church in Canton, Ohio. They didn't have much, no budget, no building, and no guarantee of success. But they had a calling and a burning desire to see our city know the hope of Jesus. They believed that God was asking them to build something that would outlive them. A church that led people to Jesus, a church that loved its community, and a church that would be known not for its seating capacity, but for its sending capacity. So they went for it. And generation after generation, people kept obeying God's voice. They prayed bold prayers. They gave sacrificially. They stepped out in faith. What began as just a few families grew into not only the largest church in our area, but at one time the largest church in the United States. It was truly a move of God right here in our city. Now, the decades that followed would bring ups and downs, but through it all, God was faithful, and the influence of our church has helped to shape our city all along the way. Now, fast forward, and here we are, living in the harvest of seeds we did not plant. And now, it's our turn. We're standing at a defining moment in the story of First Christian Church, a crossroads, not a moment of survival, but of surrender, not a moment of maintenance, but of movement. We are stepping into a 2-year discipleship journey and generosity initiative that we're calling Greater. And this is our prayer. This is the cry of our hearts, because we believe God is calling us to experience greater faith, greater surrender, and greater impact. He must become greater and greater, and I must become less. This vision will have 2 areas of focus: greater impact through our everyday mission, and greater vision to expand the kingdom. First, we want to have greater impact through our everyday mission. We're already seeing God move, and He's working through us to help people find hope and purpose and a place to belong in His family. On a weekly basis, God allows us to impact more than 2,000 children, students, and adults. Lives are being changed. People are finding Jesus. Families are being restored. And we're not slowing down. We want to be a church that doesn't settle for comfort. We don't want to believe that we've arrived. We believe God has even greater things in store than all we could ask or imagine. And we want to see every person in the 330 area code and beyond hear the good news of Jesus and be invited to know Him and become part of His family. And so we'll continue to invest in everything that God is already doing through our weekly ministry to kids and students, supporting local and global missions and outreach, connecting people to the body of Christ through groups and ministries, and raising up all in disciples of Jesus. We'll focus on creating excellent environments for worship and connection, places where people feel welcomed and wanted and inspired to connect deeply with Jesus and one another, spaces where God is worshiped with one heart and one voice. We'll deepen community by helping people grow in faith together, whether through groups or Bible studies or classes. We'll provide more opportunities for all ages and stages of life to build meaningful connections and dive deeper into God's Word together. For families, we'll have a conviction to equip the next generation, starting with our young kids. We'll provide foundational tools that help them discover God's story and their place in it. And we're praying for a greater movement among middle school, high school, and college-age students that will ignite revival and empower them to live as disciples who make disciples. This journey will be a church-wide effort to seek and save the next 2 generations. But that's not all. That's only the beginning. Second, God has given us a greater vision to expand the kingdom. We believe God is calling us to take new ground, to expand our reach, to multiply our impact, to create new places for people to encounter Jesus. We want every person in the 330 area code and beyond to hear the good news of Jesus and be invited to know Him and join His family. So to see that vision come to fruition over the next 5 years, we're going to do a few important things. We will become a multi-site church. That's one church meeting in different places as we launch 3 new campuses for people to gather, worship, and grow. We're going to help people find a place to belong in the family of God by connecting 2,000 people to God, their purpose, and the church through small groups. We're going to invest in the next generation of kingdom leaders through residencies and ministry internships that will train 15 people for full-time career ministry. We're going to reach and connect with people in our community so that they hear the good news of Jesus and of the gospel, and they're invited to know him and become part of his family. We'll strengthen marriages and families by developing a marriage ministry that impacts and encourages couples who are struggling. We'll train and release 100 new ministry leaders through the new leadership development cohorts that will carry the mission of the church forward. We'll invest more than ever in expanding the kingdom throughout our community, across the country, and all around the world through mission partners in England, Africa, Central America, and Cuba by increasing our mission support from 10% to 15% of our annual budget. That's more than $150,000. We'll expand the reach of Common Goods and our other community impact ministries to clothe, feed, support, and love more people than ever by offering these ministries at each and every campus location. And we'll equip 500 people to share their faith and lead someone to Jesus through evangelism and training opportunities. Now, a major step in this season is completing the first phase of the Myers Lake campus renovation so that we can open the doors to a new part of our community and welcome more people into the family of God. We also believe God is calling us to activate our current campus and existing ministries to be not just meeting spaces, but mission bases for disciple making. We want to have environments that effectively reach people in our communities who are not connected to church and lead them to be all-in disciples of Jesus. Right now, more than 162,000 people live within 5 miles of the building that we already own in Myers Lake. More than 55,000 of them have no involvement with their faith or connection to a church community. Those numbers are even higher at our current location. There are thousands and thousands of people in our region who do not yet know the love of Jesus. These are people searching for hope. These are families fighting for healing. These are students looking for belonging. And God has positioned us right here, right now, for them. Now imagine what's possible if we will step out boldly in faith, believing that God is leading us forward. I believe we're going to see souls saved, marriages restored, addictions broken, wounds healed, families blessed. We're going to see schools and workplaces and neighborhoods impacted, and ultimately, heaven will be more crowded as people respond to the goodness and the grace of Jesus. This vision, greater, is about your heart and your surrender and your obedience. This is a call to unity that will strengthen our faith and draw us closer to Jesus. It's going to move the mission of God forward. A 2-year discipleship journey and generosity initiative that will jumpstart 5 years of vision for our church. Just like previous generations made a way for us, God is calling us to trust him with greater faith and greater sacrifice, greater generosity, and greater dependence on him. Our primary goal is simple: 100% engagement, that every single person, every family, from every generation, everyone who calls FCC my church would take a step of faith and partner with us in this journey. That every single person who says this is home links arms and begins to make a way for future generations. Imagine a church united, not just in name, but in heart and in purpose. Every campus, every generation, every ministry, working as one for one mission. So with that in mind, we'll pray this prayer together. God, what do you want me to do with what you've entrusted to me? This is not just a generosity initiative. Greater is a movement, a discipleship journey, a stake in the ground moment for the kingdom, for Canton, for the 330, and for the one who needs Jesus. We're not building a bigger church. This is about his kingdom, not our castle. So Lord, make yourself greater in and through us. You've done great things. Do it again. That's our heart's cry. FCC, this is our time. This is our calling. This is our moment for his kingdom and for his glory. Because when God is for us, nothing can stand against us. And when we're following his lead, we can be sure that the best is yet to come.
For a second there, I thought part of the vision was going to be we need to pay the electric bill. What you just saw is not just a plan, okay? It's a picture. It's a picture of the kind of church we're going to become. What I see for FCC over the next 5 years is that we would become known as a disciple-making movement. that we would become known for training and launching next generation church leaders, that we would become known for serving our community in even more ways than we do right now, that we would become known for strengthening families, making disciples, and shaping the spiritual climate of Northeast Ohio. That we would become known for helping people find hope and purpose and a place to belong in the family of God. And I believe as we do, then what was true of the church in Acts is going to be true of us, that the Lord's going to add to our number every single day somebody who's saying yes to Jesus. See, for the past few years, we've had this vision here, all for the one. The idea is every single one of us has somebody that God has put in our life, and it's our purpose to reach that person, because every one of us is uniquely equipped to reach somebody in a way that only we can. And so we literally, if on campus, we built a wall that says all for the one. The letters are taller than most of us are, right? You can't miss it out there. It has light bulbs all over it. And that's been our vision, is what can we do? We'll do anything to reach the one. Okay? And last year, we saw God do that in a bigger way than I've ever seen in my life. More than 270 people took the step of saying yes to Jesus, getting in the water, being baptized, starting a walk with Jesus. And I'm excited about that. I'm thankful for that. Some of you were those people. You are those people. But you know what? That's not enough, because there are still people in our city who don't have the hope of Jesus. And so it's not just all for the one. Our prayer is one more. Amen. One more. We all have one more person, and we're going to pray that prayer every time we celebrate somebody taking those steps. We're going to say, thank you, God, give us one more, whoever that might be. Now, I know that a lot of what we're talking about, a lot of what you saw in the video, a lot of what we will talk about over the next few weeks is really big. And so you may already be asking, how are we going to do this? And the answer is, just like we said, it's going to take every single one of us 100% engagement to be involved, to be connected, to be generous, to be serving, to be giving, to be participating, to be sharing the good news of Jesus. We can't be spectators. We have to be in the game. Every single one of us, 100%. Now, let me preface this next part by saying a couple of things. You guys know, if you've been around here for a while, that we don't talk about money very often here at FCC. If you're here for the first time, you're going to walk out saying, all that church talks about is money. I mean, literally, you picked the only week, okay? We probably don't talk about it enough, because Jesus talked about it a lot, but it's just not something we preach about very often. But when we do, I always preface those conversations with two really important things, and I'm going to remind you of those right now. Number one, anytime Jesus talked about money in the Bible, it was never really about money. He doesn't care that much about your wallet, but he cares a whole lot about your heart. And he knows us well enough to know that our hearts and our wallets are usually pretty tied together. And so we talk about our money because that tends to be the thing that becomes our sense of security and self-sufficiency, and we rely less on God and more on us. But for Jesus, it was never really about money. It's about our hearts. And the other thing is, when we talk about generosity here at FCC, it's never just about money. It's about our time, our talent, and our treasure, all of the resources that God has given us to manage. And so I'm reminding you of that, because as we talk about the need for all of us to be generous, it's not meaning just cut a check. It means we need people to step up and serve. We need people to teach kids in our kids ministry. We need people to hold doors and make coffee. We need people to drive buses on Sunday morning to bring people to church. We need people to be involved in our student ministry and our seniors ministry and everything in between. We need people to be involved in our disability ministry to keep providing a place for people who don't have any other place. We need you to be involved. It's 100%. We need everybody. That's how we're going to get it done. Now, with all of that said, if you're wondering how we're going to resource all of this, I'm going to break this down. I'm going to do this quickly, and I'm going to move on, and we'll talk more about this later. We figure that to accomplish everything we need to accomplish over the next 2 years to jumpstart 5 years of vision for our church, it's going to be about $11 million. Now, that sounds like a lot of money, believe me. So let me explain how that breaks down. Number one, that includes what we would call our regular operating budget, which right now is a little more than $3 million a year. That's how we pay our staff. That's how we take care of our property and our buildings. That's how we fund ministries, and it's how we support our mission partners, both in our community and all around the world. That budget, again, is a little over $3 million. So if you take that and multiply it by 2 over 2 years, that's about $6.5 million of that $11 million figure. And remember, that includes an increase. We're going to go from 10% to 15% of our budget. It's going back out our doors to missions. Now, let me just tell you, and this is not in my notes today, okay? So I didn't sleep. I've been awake since 2:30 last night. This is my 7th cup of coffee. It might get weird from here on out, okay? So here's the deal. When I got here, we didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. All right? Literally, we did not have enough money in our bank account to hold us over. If we had a Sunday like last Sunday where we got snowed out, that was the end for First Christian Church. And 2 years ago, we bought a building to launch a community service location and another campus with cash, $2.1 million. Now, that's pretty cool, but it's not about the money. It's about the mission. And because God's been so good to us and he's been so faithful to us and he's resourced us to be able to do the work he's called us to do, man, now we're in a position to do things that if you'd asked me 13 years ago, I'd have said you were crazy. We were just happy to come in here and have like the heat on and, like the lights on. That was enough. But now I feel like God's put us at a place where he's saying, okay, you're out of the exile, right? It's time to start dreaming again. It's time to look forward again. It's time to step out again. So that's what we're doing. So that makes up the other $4.5 million of that $11 million goal. It's to build the residency program. It's to build the marriage ministry. It's to renovate the campus. It's to launch the leadership training cohort and the evangelism training program. It's to do all of those new, bigger, greater, I guess you could say, ministry efforts. It's to make all that stuff happen. And I'll tell you the reason why is because, we're going to come back to this in a little bit, is when we're done here, like when I take my last breath in this world, I hope I left it all on the field. We could all play it safe. I don't want to play it safe. If you want to play it safe, I don't think this is a church for you. But if you're saying, okay, I'm ready to do something bold because I believe God is in it, that's what we're going to be about here at FCC. That's what generations and generations before us have done, and that's what we'll do. Now, I have one kind of cool, exciting update for you that didn't make it into the video because the video was already done, but we actually started construction over at Myers Lake this past week, so we have some pictures to show you the crew already in there tearing the ceiling down. They're tearing walls down. They're getting ready to turn that place into a facility that's going to serve that whole community. And you heard the numbers a few minutes ago. It's thousands and thousands of people that we've already been able to establish some kind of communication with, even serve many of them, and we haven't even scratched the surface yet. Now, here's what you're going to get today, and then I'm going to wrap up, okay? I'll get back to preaching a little bit. On the way out, you're going to get a booklet that looks like this. And this booklet unpacks a little bit of what you saw in the video. It explains a whole lot, and there are several things in here. I'm not going to walk through all of it with you, but there's a little note from me at the very beginning if you care anymore. Let's see. There's some cool statistics to celebrate some of the great things that we saw God do here at FCC last year. So we'll recap some of those things. A little statement about our vision and where we're headed. All right, let me skip ahead. There's some stuff in here about the numbers, the finances, so you can read up a little bit more on that and what makes up how that's going to work. And then if you skip ahead to like page 16, there's a little breakdown of what's next, and it gives you 4 ways that you can get involved right now. And the first one is to pray, and I'm going to ask you here in just a few minutes to lead off by doing that. So you could read page 16, and then the pages that follow are just weekly devotions that go along with every sermon in this series, so that together as a church, I don't even know if you guys know this. Did you know we put out a weekly study guide every single weekend? If you didn't know that, you can get it on our website. If you just go to the sermons page, every single weekend we have a team of volunteers who write one of these things. So this time we just put them in print, okay? But there's one for every Sunday of this series. Now, tucked inside every booklet is a commitment card, and I don't want you to do anything with it yet. Just hang on to it, okay? I'm not looking for decisions today, commitments today, pledges today, giving today. We're not looking for that. We just want you to pray today. So I'm just letting you know it's in there so that you don't do anything with it, all right? We're going to talk about all of that stuff later on. But where we're beginning together is just by saying, God, how do you want to do this? Because if you've given us this vision, if you've given us this picture, we believe that you're going to make it possible. Show us how, and how do you want to work through me to help make that happen? That's the prayer we'll pray. Now, if you have any questions on that, we have a table out in the lobby. You can connect with me later. Let me kind of wrap up with this, okay? To go back to this thought, things have been pretty good here the last few years and getting better and better all the time. And we could cruise, and we could be pretty comfortable for now. And so maybe you're asking, if things are good, why? Why take such a big step? Why such a big vision? Why so many new things? Why all of this, right? Tell me why. And I'll tell you why, but to tell you why, we got to look at a psalm from the Old Testament, Psalm 102. Now, a lot of the Psalms in the Bible we think were written by David, or, we know who the author is. But this one's a little different because it's anonymous. We don't actually know who wrote this one. The only thing we know about it is at the very beginning of this psalm, this is what whoever wrote it said about themselves. They said, this is a prayer of one who's overwhelmed with trouble, pouring out problems before the Lord. And a lot of scholars agree that this psalm was probably written during or just after the Babylonian exile. And so you guys, if you know me, sometimes I like to speculate, and maybe sometimes I even cross the line a little bit. I probably shouldn't do this, but I just read that and I was like, what if it was Nehemiah? What if he wrote this? And as I read you some of these words, I think you'll see why I wonder if maybe it was him. And from this psalm, we're going to take our 3 whys for why we're stepping into this vision, okay? So let me read you a couple verses. Psalm 102, verses 1 and 2. It starts, Lord, hear my prayer. Listen to my plea. Don't turn away from me in my time of distress. Bend down to listen and answer me quickly when I call to you. And then the author goes on. He talks about how his heart is sick and his bones hurt and he's lonely and his tears flow. And it's just this picture of somebody who's in total anguish. And it's not like this pain because of a personal condition. It's a pain because whoever wrote this is looking around at the condition of things and they're so burdened and so heartbroken by it that they are begging God to act. They're begging him to step in, to bring help and hope. They're begging God to move. And it's a prayer that's born out of discomfort. And so our first why is because our faith grows in discomfort. Not when we're comfortable, not when things are good. Discomfort grows our faith. Nehemiah traded his comfort for discomfort. See, remember, he had a good thing going, but he chose to let go of that to follow this calling that he believed God had given him. And because he did, again, eternity was changed. He couldn't shake that burden, and he didn't want to look back later with regret. Honestly, I think that's why he stepped out. And you know what? I don't want that for us either. A few years down the road, I don't want to look back and think, man, we had our opportunity, we didn't go for it, we missed it. I don't want to look back at the end of my life and think, man, God was really doing something there. We could have been a part of it, and we chose not to be. Because let me tell you something, he's doing it with or without us. And I don't want to get left out. I don't want our church to get left out. And so we're not just going to stay comfortable. We're not just going to take it easy. Listen, you show me in the Bible where God told somebody to do the easy thing, we'll do the easy thing. Let me know. Email me. Usually if somebody does the easy thing, God's not there. But when he asks somebody to do something uncomfortable, that's what he's in. And man, if he's in it, I'm in. I want to go. Okay? So there's our first why. And I'll just ask you to think about this. What makes you uncomfortable? What bothers you? What keeps you awake at night? What injustice do you see? What do you see in our city that you wish was better? And what are you going to do about it? That's kind of where this whole vision came from. Now let me move on. In Psalm 102, verse 12, it says, but you, O Lord, will sit on your throne forever. Your fame will endure to every generation. You will arise and have mercy on Jerusalem. Now is the time to pity her. Now is the time you promised to help. For your people love every stone in her walls and cherish even the dust in her streets. Then the nations will tremble before the Lord, and the kings of earth will tremble before his glory. For the Lord will rebuild Jerusalem. He will appear in his glory, and he'll listen to the prayers of the destitute. He will not reject their pleas. And whoever wrote this is like worn down physically and emotionally and spiritually, just exhausted, but still confident that God's not done. Still confident that God's going to move. That God is going to do something only God could do. And that when he does, nobody will deny God did it. And when that can be denied, everybody's going to worship him. That's what the author is just convinced of here. And so, listen, that brings us to our second why. It's because God cares about broken walls. They matter to him. The author's saying, God, I know you see what I see, and I know you care, and that's why I care, and I believe you're going to do something. So our why is broken walls matter to God. That's why we care, because God cares. If you've ever wondered what God wants from you, there's a verse that just spells it right out. I don't know if you know this, but James 1:27 just puts it right out there. It says, religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. In other words, yeah, look out for you and your soul, but look out for other people too, especially the voiceless. Be a voice for them. Be an advocate. And that's it. James says that's religion that's pure and faultless. Okay, so now let's talk about who those people are in our world. Yes, it's the orphans and widows, and I see them when I look at our city, but I see addictions. I see anxiety. I see people with this spiritual apathy. I see an identity crisis in every generation in some way, shape, or form. I see division and fear and hatred. I see darkness, and I see people searching for answers, and they don't even necessarily know where to look. But I see it all. And these aren't abstract problems. This is our family. These are our friends. These are your kids' parents. These are your coworkers and your neighbors. Some of you, this is your family, and some of you, this is the person sitting in front of you or behind you right now. These are people we know. These are people that we love. And so our why isn't because we're bored. They're our why. We're stepping forward because we believe that they matter to God, those people who are hurting and searching, and so they matter to us. That's our why. Let me get to the third one. This is verse 18. It says, "Let this be recorded for future generations, so that a people not yet born will praise the Lord. And tell them, the Lord looked down from his heavenly sanctuary. He looked down to earth from heaven to hear the groans of the prisoners, to release those condemned to die. And so the Lord's fame will be celebrated in Zion, and his praises in Jerusalem. And when multitudes gather together and kingdoms come to worship the Lord." And the author realizes what God's about to do is going to outlive me. It's bigger than me. It's going to reshape eternity. And so our why, number 3, is because future generations are watching. Nehemiah was not rebuilding the walls for himself. He was recreating a place for their people to live and move forward. And I want you to know that what we're doing is not about us. Okay, in fact, I'll just take you to verse 28 of this psalm that says, "The children of your people will live in security, and their children's children will thrive in your presence." Man, I want my children's children to thrive in his presence, because they're a part of something maybe we helped create. And I want that for future generations in your family too, and the people that you love. And every generation gets to decide what kind of church the next one's going to inherit. And what we choose to do in this season can spark awe and worship in the generations that are going to follow us. We're not just doing this for today. We're planting seeds of faith for people who haven't been born yet. Think about that. What we do now is going to become the foundation that our kids and their kids and their kids are going to stand on. We inherited this thing. We didn't start this. We inherited this from generations that have come before us, and we're stewarding it for generations that are going to come after us. And we get to set a course for the future, and the course we're going to set is that we want to see every single person in the 330 area code and beyond hear the good news of Jesus and be invited to know him and become part of his family. That's what it's all about. We want to see not just one, but one more. One more marriage healed. One more addiction broken. One more story rewritten by grace. And that's our why. That's our why. So, again, over the next few weeks, I want to ask you to pray and listen and just be open. Just be open. Pray that prayer, Lord, what do you want to do in and through me? And just see what he says to you. That's all. That's all we're asking you to do. Again, take the booklet. Just read it. Hang on to it. Don't do anything with it yet. We'll talk more about it. But just pray that prayer and see how he moves. And see what burden he puts on you and puts in your life.